Throughout history, diseases have swept through cities and continents, taking lives by the millions and leaving strange and terrifying stories in their wake. Today, we're diving into 5 of the deadliest diseases humanity has ever faced, with some weird facts you won't believe. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode of the strange and unexpected stories hidden in history. Let's start with the Bubonic Plague, also known as the Black Death. This terrifying disease wiped out a third of Europe's population in the 14th century. But here's the strange fact. The plague spread so fast, some people even believed it was carried on a supernatural plague wind. This panic led to bizarre remedies like carrying sweet-smelling flowers or bathing in rose water to avoid the foul air they thought caused it. It was actually spread by fleas on rats. And one more eerie twist. Many believed the plague would come again every 100 years as a form of punishment, a fear that stayed alive for generations. Next up, smallpox. This disease decimated civilizations, wiping out nearly 90% of the indigenous population in the Americas alone. The weirdest part? Smallpox scars were so feared that wealthy women in the 18th century would wear makeup so thick that it became a fashion trend to cover the marks. And in some cultures, children were even vaccinated by making tiny cuts on their arms and rubbing in dried smallpox scabs. A method known as variolation? It sounds gruesome, but it actually worked. Smallpox was finally eradicated in 1980, marking the first time in history that humans completely defeated a disease. Then there's influenza, specifically the Spanish flu of 1918. This flu was so deadly, it killed more people in 1 year than World War I and II combined. But here's the weird fact. Doctors at the time advised people to avoid shaking hands and wear masks, which led to a backlash we still see today. Some even went so far as to put onions in every corner of their homes, thinking it would ward off infection. And here's something else bizarre. The Spanish flu wasn't from Spain at all. It got its name because Spain, a neutral country in the war, was one of the only places openly reporting cases. Next is tuberculosis, or TB. Known as the White Plague, TB was so deadly that it inspired a strange trend called consumption chic. In the 19th century, people considered the disease a sign of romantic beauty, pale skin, thin frames, and a haunted look. Writers, poets, and artists were particularly affected, with many calling it the artist's disease. To be pale and frail was actually in style. And here's a disturbing fact. Before antibiotics, TB patients were sometimes sent to isolated sanatoriums in remote mountains, where the cure was fresh air and rest. Many patients never left those eerie, isolated buildings. Finally, we have malaria, a disease that's plagued humanity for thousands of years and still infects millions every year. Here's the weird part. Malaria literally means bad air. It was once believed that the disease came from the foul air in swamps. And here's something stranger. Some doctors in the 1920s tried to treat syphilis by infecting patients with malaria. The high fevers caused by malaria were thought to kill the syphilis bacteria. Surprisingly, it sometimes worked, and the patient was then treated with quinine to combat the malaria. Imagine that, fighting one deadly disease with another. These diseases were terrifying, but they also left behind strange legacies and bizarre treatments. From plague doctors to variolation scars, history's fight against disease has always been a weird mix of desperation and innovation. If you enjoyed learning about these dark chapters of history, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you'll be the first to know when our next strange story goes live. Thanks for watching and stay curious.